Assalamu alaikum everyone. So in this video we are going to solve paper 2-1 of October November 2025. Okay, so in this paper I'm going to discuss in detail solution and why we are choosing some option, why we are not choosing the others. Okay, so let's start with the first question. A student determines the diameter of a metal ball. Which apparatus is needed to get an accurate measurement? Okay, so what is the challenge in measuring a metal ball? Basically, you have to measure the diameter. It's very hard to accurately determine the diameter of it because we don't know where the center is. So what we use, the common technique is we use set squares. What the set square is a rectangular object like this. Okay, one set square will be placed there, one is placed there. Okay, and there should be a scale. Okay, so you can easily get the reference point where this line is touching and where this line is touching, and this thing will give you the diameter. So this is the method to find diameter of a circular thing. This is the ruler, these are the set squares. Okay, so what we will use is option D, that is correct, a ruler and two rectangular blocks. In question 2, an athlete ran at a speed of 8 meter per second for 10 seconds and then at a speed of 6 meter per second for 12 seconds. Calculate the which calculation give the average speed. So for the average speed, relation is total distance divided with total time. Okay, so what we have to find, we have to find total distance. First, the speed was 8 and time was this. So we know distance is equals to speed into time. So this will be 8 into 10 and this distance will be 6 into 12. Okay, so sum of the distances will be equals to total distance is 8 into 10 plus 6 into 12, and total time, the time was 10 second and then 12 second, so it is 10 plus 12. Okay, we don't have 10 plus 12 but we have this 22 on the bottom. So this thing will give you 8 into 10 plus 6 into 12 divided by 22. It's option B that is correct. Okay, let's move forward to the third question. A piece of paper torn out of an exercise book is shown. What is being described? Okay, what is describing? Describe how a massive object affects the space around it, including the size and direction of the force it would exert on the other object placed in that space. Okay, so gravitational charge is not something, gravitational field. Basically, gravitational field define the weight of the object, and what the weight is basically pull of the other object or the planet on the object, right? So it's the gravitational field that is explained in this page. Okay. Question 4. Diagram shows one liquid floating on the top of another. Which statement explain why liquid P float on the liquid Q? What is the basic principle? This P should be less dense and this should be more dense. The one with a more density will sink and one with a less density will float. This is a basic principle. So now let's analyze all the options one by one. In the first option, the mass of the liquid Q is greater than the mass of the liquid P. Okay, so mass of Q is greater than, so mass will not determine which one will float and which one will sink. Okay, so this is not the criteria. Okay, for option B, the mass of 1 centimeter cube of liquid Q is greater than mass of 1 centimeter cube of liquid P. So what they are telling, if you see, mass per centimeter cube. So mass per centimeter cube is basically mass per unit volume. That is basically density. If you remember the formula for the density. So density of Q is greater than density of P. Yes, this is true. Option B is correct. In question 5, a spring has a spring constant K. What is a possible unit for K? If you remember the Hooke's law, F is equals to Kx, so K is equals to F over X. So it can be written as For F it can be Newton, for X it can be meter. Okay, so it should be option C that is correct. Okay, so it is Newton per meter. In question 6, which statement about the movement of a force is not correct? And we have the following options. In option A, if an object is balanced about pivot, the resultant movement on the object must be 0. That is correct. What we have to choose? We have to choose not correct. Okay. The movement of a force is measured of its turning effect. Yes, movement of a force is turning effect. The movement of a force about a pivot point is equals to the force multiplied by the perpendicular distance from the pivot. Okay, this is the definition for the moment. So this is also correct. So the movement of a force about a pivot increase when the perpendicular distance of the force from the pivot decrease. No, it should increase to decrease the force. So basically it's the option D that is incorrect. Okay. What they are telling, the moment of force about a point increases. Basically the moment of force, if we represent it as by M, it is equals to F into D. If this D is increasing, this moment will also increase. Okay, if any of the factor increase, the moment will increase. So question 7, the momentum of a car changes from 10,000 to 15,000 kg in a time of 8 seconds. What is the resultant force? Okay, so you need to know the formula of force is change in momentum per unit time. Okay, so change in momentum, you can minus the bigger value from the smaller value, divide by the time, that is 8, and doing this you will get the answer 625, that is nearly 630. Okay, moving forward, a machine is very efficient. What does this mean? Efficiency mean less losses. Okay, that you have to keep in mind, and it will be option C that is correct. Okay, it's not about the how much power it is producing, it's about how less it is wasting the energy. The diagram 1 shows a conical flask containing water. Diagram 2 shows a beaker with the same base area as the flask and containing water of the same depth. Which statement is correct? Okay, so the pressure at P is equal to the pressure at X. So pressure in liquid, we know it is rho gh. As both have the same liquid, so its mean density is same. G is constant, so its mean P depends on the depth, that is h. So if both have the same depth, if D is same, then pressure will also be same. So the pressure at P is equals to pressure at X, because X and Y both are at the same depth, they are in the same liquid. So this is P and this is X, they are in the same liquid, same depth, and G will also be same planet. A flask with a tight fitting stopper contain a gas. The gas and the flask are initially at room temperature. The gas and the flask are cooled. Which row describe the average speed of the gas particles and the pressure of the gas as the temperature decreases? Okay, when the temperature decreases, the speed will also decrease. You need to know that temperature is directly proportional with the kinetic energy. Okay, so if the temperature is decreasing, the speed will also decrease, and pressure is also directly proportional with the temperature. So both things will decrease. It's option A. In question 11, Brownian motion is the random movement of microscopic particles in a liquid or gas. Which statement about Brownian motion is correct? Okay. So Brownian motion only occur when the liquid. Achha, what you have to keep in mind, there are some macroscopic particles, like it can be a smoke particle, and there are small particles, they are not visible, like the air particle. They collide with the smoke particle and they bounce back. Okay, so this is the Brownian motion is. So A is not the option. Much heavier fast moving particle that cannot be seen collide, no, they are not much heavier, they are lighter particles. C, much light fast moving particle that cannot be seen collide with the microscopic particle. Yes, They are the much lighter and fast particle colliding with micro. D is also not an option. Okay, the microscopic particle move to avoid the fast moving. No, this is not the option. C is correct one. In 12, the distance between two electricity pylon is 60. Okay, you can take this thing as a tower. The cable that connects the two pylon is 62 meters in length. Why is the cable longer than the distance between the towers? So let's suppose if there is one big tower, there is another one big tower. If you see, mostly the cables are loosely hanging like this. Okay, why we keep the cables like this? Why they're not tight? Because in winters they will contract, and if there is no space between them for the contraction, they can break down. Okay, so that is the reason why we keep the length greater than the distance between the pylons than this, right? So it's option A to allow for the contraction of the cable in a cold weather. In question 13, a glass beaker contain a mass. This is from the specific heat capacity topic. You have the mass, you have the temperature, okay, theta. The specific heat capacity of water is given, that is C. A brass block of mass, this is at temperature of this. The block is carefully lowered into the beaker of the water. Okay, so there are two scenarios. One scenario is for the water, and the other scenario is for the brass block. Okay, so this is for the brass block, and this above scenario is for the beaker. Okay, so the final temperature of both the water and the brass is 30. So we have the final temperatures. What is the specific heat capacity of the brass? Assume that no water is lost and no thermal energy is being transferred to the surroundings. Okay, first thing you need to know, specific heat capacity. So specific heat capacity for the brass is, we know the formula, C is equals to E divided by M delta theta. Okay, what the energy is not given, right? That you have to find. How we can find the energy? The brass was initially at a temperature of, at a temperature, okay, we have to find the energy, and energy is, the brass block is going into the water, right? So it's getting heated up by the water. So energy, this E is energy, what you can say, energy gained by water or from water. So how much energy you are gaining from the water? Same amount that the water lose the energy. So energy is equals to mc delta theta, we know, right? So we will use this thing for the water. Water mass is 0.20, its C is 4200, and its change in temperature, water was initially at 20 and finally at 30. So it is 30 minus 20, that will give you 8400. So this joule of energy is lost by the water, and the same amount will be gained by the brass rod. So it will be 8400. Okay, and mass of the brass rod is 0.15, and change in temperature, it was 170 and it then came to 30. So 170 minus 30. Okay, so it will become, when you do the calculation, it is 8400 divided by 21, that will give you 400. Okay, so option A, that is correct. In question 14, which statement about convection is not correct? Okay, not correct. It enable water in a pan on a cooker to get evenly heated. This is true. Okay, convection cause to spread the heat inside the fluid. It happen in liquid and gases, yes. It occur because cooler liquid rise, no. Cooler liquid sink and warmer will rise. So this is incorrect, that we have to choose. Question 15, iron is a better conductor of thermal energy than rubber. Which statement explain this? Okay, explain. Electron in iron can move from one part of the iron to another. The electron in rubber cannot move in this way. Yes, yes, there are no free electrons in the rubber, so that is true. Okay, so we got our answer. Question 16. Two metal cans are identical except that one has a shining silver outer surface and the other have a dull black outer surface. They have the same mass and hot water and same temperature. They are both in vacuum in the darkness of the outer space. How does the temperature of the water in each changes? You have to keep in mind that shiny silver is poor absorber and emitter of heat. We are talking about the radiation. Okay, because these two cans are not in physical contact, there is no conduction. They are placed in vacuum, so there is no convection. The only way for the transfer of heat is radiation. So shiny silver is a poor absorber and emitter, same as dull black is good absorber and emitter. Good absorbers are the good emitters, right? So black will lose more heat as compared to the shiny surface. So it's option C. The water in the silver can cool more slowly than the black can. Okay. The ray of light reflects from a plane mirror. The angle between the incident ray and the surface of the mirror is 35. Which statement is correct? Okay, so first you have to make the scenario. Let's suppose this is the mirror and there is a normal, the light is coming like this, and they are saying this angle between the surface and this is 35. So if this thing is 35, this incident angle will be equals to 90 minus 35, that will give you 55. So option B is correct. Okay, first you need to understand the scenario. We always measure the angles with the normal, not with the surface. Question 18. Plane waves in a ripple tanks are diffracted as they pass through a gap in a barrier. Three changes that can be made to this arrangements are listed. Okay, which change will cause the shape of diffracted wave to be less curved? Less curved mean less diffraction. Less diffracted. So you have to keep in mind diffraction is directly proportional to the wavelength. And secondly, diffraction is inversely proportional to the gap width from where they are moving. So if you have to decrease the diffraction, less curve, you have to decrease the wavelength. It's option C. In question 19, a beam of light passes through a vacuum and then enter into a transparent liquid. The diagram shows the path. The light travels through a vacuum at a speed of this. What is the speed of the light in the liquid? Okay, so you have incident angle, you have refracted angle, and you have speed. So there are two formulas for the refractive index. N is equals to sine I over sine C. Okay, and there is another relation, N is equals to C by V. Okay, what we can do, we have to use both of them in that case because we don't have refractive index. So if both left sides are equal, so they can be equated. So you can write C by V is equals to sine I over sine R. What we have to find? We have to find V. So V can be written as this thing will go there, this will go there. You are cross multiplying. Okay, so V is equals to C multiplied by sine R divided by sine I. So C is 3 into 10 raised to power 8. R is 25 and I is 40. Okay, before calculating, make sure your calculator is in degree modes. Okay, and you will get answer 2.010 raised to power 8 meter per second. Okay, that's option B. Question 20. Which statement about a thin converging lens is correct? Okay, option A is all rays of the light reflected by the lens pass through the principal. No, not all rays, only parallel rays. Okay, Option B, all rays initially parallel to the principal axis of lens are reflected through the, yes, that is true. Okay. So if you remember, this is, let's suppose, the converging lens, this is the principal focus, these are the ray, they will pass like this. Okay, they will converge at a focal point. Question 21, the diagram shows two narrow beam of light P and Q passing through the same prism. Beam P and Q are both incident on the same point, same angle. Which row correctly compare P and Q? Okay, only Q is dispersed. Yes, dispersion is splitting of waves, so it's only splitting. This wave is not splitting into the different paths or the different frequencies. Okay, so this can be of P is a monochromatic and Q is a white light. Uh, no, Q is not a white light because white light have 7 different frequencies and they must disperse. Okay, so P can be a white light, right? And Q should be a monochromatic, and only P is dispersed, so it's option D that is correct. Okay. Question 22. Ultraviolet radiation and IR radiations are both parts of electromagnetic spectrum. However, they differ in wavelength and frequency, which describe how they differ. Okay. So if you remember the electromagnetic spectrum, there is a radio waves, then micro, then IR, then visible, then UV, then X-ray, then gamma ray. If you move that way, then lambda increase. And if you move that way, then F increase. So it's option D that is correct. Okay. In question 23, a police car with its siren sounding is stationary in a heavy traffic. A pedestrian notices that although the loudness of the sound produced does not change, the pitch varies. Which row describe the amplitude and frequency? Okay, so amplitude basically directly proportional with the loudness, and frequency is directly proportional with the pitch. Okay, so it's option B that is correct because amplitude is same, loudness is same, but frequency is changing, pitch is changing. Okay. In question 24, the diagram shows four parts of the magnetic field around two magnets. Which list give the order of magnetic field strength at the point P, Q, R, and the weakest, strongest? Okay. If you see this, there is almost no magnetic field line between it. And second, they both are repelling each other. So this is the weakest. Okay. Then the strongest will be near the pole. So in sequence, if we have to write from weakest to strongest. So this is the weakest, then this is stronger, and this is strongest. One, two, three. So it's option D that is correct. A fully charged battery stores a charge of 18,000 coulomb. The battery is charged with a current of this. How long does it take to fully charge and completely discharge the battery? Okay, so you have to find time. You have Q, you have I. So we know I is equals to Q over T, right? So I can write T is equals to Q over I. Q is 18,000 and I is, this is in milli, so it will be 8,000 10 power minus 3 ampere. You just have to put the values with the correct units and the calculation carefully. You will get, okay, sorry, but you will get, when you divide this thing, you get 21686.74 seconds. But we don't have any option in seconds here. You have to convert into minutes. So to convert into minutes, in minutes, you have to divide this thing with 60. So this will give you 361.44 minutes. We don't have any option in minutes such as, so to convert in hours, you have to 361.44 divided by 60. That will give you 6.02 hours. That is option D. Moving forward, question 26. What is the definition of electromagnetic force? Okay, so electromagnetic force is basically the work done on a unit charge. It's option A. 27. A cell passes a current of this in 30 seconds. This time the cell transfers this much of energy. What is the electromotive force of the cell? As we just have discussed, EMF is energy transferred per unit charge, but we don't know the current charge. So charge we know is equals to I into T, current into time. So this will be energy divided by I into T. Energy is 120, I is 2 and T is 30. It will give you 2. So option C, that is correct. In question 28, the diagram shows two resistors in series connected to a power supply. The reading on the voltmeter is 3 when the switch is closed. What is the resistance of the resistor R? Okay, so the reading on the voltmeter is 3. There are 3 watts. Total is 12. So there are 3, there should be 9 watts. Okay. If you see, we know the relation. Let's call this R1, this V1. Let's call this R2. This should be V2. The basic relation is ratios of resistances should be equals to ratios of the voltages. This is only for the series circuit like this, or you can say the potential divider. Okay, we have to find what we have to find. We have to find R, that is R2. So R2 will be equals to R1 into V2 divided by V1. R1 is 6, V2 is 3, V1 is 9. So 18 by 9, that is equals to 2. So it's option D, that is correct. In question 29, lamps can be connected in series or in parallel to a power supply. What is an advantage of connecting the lamp in parallel rather than in series? Okay, when you connect the lamps in parallel, you have a better control. If any one of them will be stop working, the other one can work. Okay, they will not be disconnected. So it's option C, that is correct. In 30, the lamps on a bicycle are powered by a simple electrical generator. A permanent magnet rotates around a stationary coil of wire wound on an iron core. Which statement is correct? Okay, so let's read them one by one. In A, the current in the lamps decrease as the speed of the rotation increases. No. Current increase as the speed increases. The current in the lamp decrease when the magnet is replaced. No, it is other way around. The output electromotive force will be higher if the gap between the magnets and the coil is bigger. No, this is opposite of it. So we are only left with one option, that is D. The output EMF will be higher if there are more turns on the coil. Yes. Okay. 31. A current carrying coil is magnetic field between the two poles of a between the poles of two magnet experience a turning effect. Which change would decrease the turning effect? Okay, so we know the turning effect depends on the strength of a magnetic field, the current passing through it, and the number of turns. So option D, that is correct. Okay. In question 32, a cable transmits electrical power from the output of the transformer at a power station to the input of another transformer. Okay, so what the output is coming from there, this output is going as an input of this transformer. Okay, the power of the output of the transformer at the power station is 400 watts. So here you are getting 400 megawatts. Which situation deliver the most power to the input of the transformer? Okay, so this question is from the transmission and you have to deliver most portion. Okay, so what you can do, you can increase area of wire. How we can do it? To increase the area, you can use a large diameter. So you can choose between these. And what you have to do, you can decrease the current. If you remember, the power loss equation is I square R. So we have to reduce both the portions, both the variables. If the area is more, the resistance will be less power will be lost. And if the voltage is more, the current will be less. So decreasing the current by increasing voltage, that will reduce the power losses. So you have to choose the higher one. So it's option C, that is correct. Okay. In question 33, Pu is an isotope of plutonium. The nucleus can absorb a neutron and then split to form two other nuclei. Two nuclei that form are gold and phosphorus. In this section, neutrons are also produced. What is the number of neutrons produced in this section? Okay, so we have to make the equation. What we have Pu. This is 239. This is 94, and it is hit by a neutron. Neutron is 10, right? And it's going to make gold, that is 207 and 79, plus it is making phosphorus, that is 31 and 15. So this is the equation. Okay. And plus it is making neutrons. We know neutron is n0, but how many electrons are there we don't know, so we have to find this x. Okay, so let's try to balance the equation. The mass on the left side should be equal to mass on the right side, so I'm going to balance these things. So for the left hand side, it is 239 plus 1. It should be equal to right hand side 207 plus 31 plus, if there are x number of neutron, then the mass will be x times 1. So x will be equals to 239 plus 1, this will go there, 207, this will also go there, minus 31. This will give me 2. So x is 2. Okay, that's question 34. Three statements about the alpha particles and the beta particles are listed. The magnitude of charge, but you have to tell which statement is help to explain the different ionizing effect of alpha particle and beta particle. Okay, only the ionizing effect. The magnitude of the charge on alpha particle is twice the magnitude of the charge on the beta. Yes, it is true. Charge on alpha is plus 2, charge on beta is minus 1. Okay, so it's in magnitude it is twice. The mass of alpha particle is large compared with the mass of beta. Yes, it is large. Yes, it is true. The kinetic energy of alpha particle is small. No, the kinetic energy is more because it is more ionizing. So it's option B, that is correct. In 35, a beta particle is fast moving electron. Which statement explain how beta particles are emitted from an atom? So beta particles are emitted when the neutron split into a proton and a beta particle. Okay, it's option C. Question 36. Which properties must a radioactive isotope have for its radiation to make it suitable to kill bacteria in foods? Okay, so to kill bacteria in food, they should be more penetrating. So gamma is suitable. Okay, so A and C you have to choose, and its half-life should be several hours, not minute, because minute is too less to kill them. It is several hours. In question 37, a student tries to predict the effect of exposure time on the radiation dose received from the source. Radiation dose measures the amount of ionizing radiation received by a living organism, which graph shows the correct trend between the variables. So this trend is between the radiation dose and exposure time. So when you increase the exposure time, the radiation dose will increase. They are directly proportional. And when the exposure time is 0, the radiation dose will also be 0. So it is option A, that is correct. In question 38, a satellite is in orbit around the Earth. The orbit has a radius r and time period t. Which expression gives the orbital speed? We know speed is distance over time, and for this orbital motion, this distance is equals to circumference 2 pi r, and thus time is equals to time period. So v is equals to 2 pi r divided by t. It's option C, that is correct. In question 39, comets move around the sun. Which statement describes the orbit of a comet? So comets are moving around the sun in an elliptical orbit, and the sun is not at the center of it. That you have to keep in mind. they will move like this, and sun is somehow there. Okay, so this is the um, comet. Okay, so it's option D that is correct. For question 14, a galaxy is at a distance of 60 million years from the Earth. The galaxy is moving away at a speed of this. Okay, one light is equal to this thing, and this there are 3.2 times above 7 seconds in 1 year. Which expression can be estimate the age? To estimate the age in years, so you have to find time in years. Okay, so what relation we have? We know that the speed is distance over time. So you can write time is equals to distance over speed. This is the distance, this is the speed. Distance is 60 million. So 60 million light year divided by 1300 kilometer per second. Now let's change it. So how we can write 60, and for this million I can simply write it as 10 power 6. And for light year, we know 1 light year is, it's given here, it's equals to 9.5 10 raised to power 12 kilometer, and there is 1300 kilometer per second. So this kilometer cancel, it will give you, I'm not going to solve this thing because we have to choose the option. We're just trying to make the given form. This is second. Okay, we have to find in years. How we can change second to year? We know this thing. 1 year is 3.2 10 raised to power 7 seconds. So if I take this whole thing on the other side, I can write it as 1 second is equals to 1 year divided by 3.2 10 raised to power 7. I can put this thing here. So I will get 60 into 10 power 6 into 9.5 into 10 power 12 into year divided by 3.2 10 raised to power 7, and there is 1300. So if you match this thing, this is equals to this. Option B is correct. Okay, that's it. See you with the next video.